Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of No Vacancy Live. That's Anthony Melchiori. I am Glenn Hausman. It is so great to see that you're spending some time with us today. Anthony, we got no guest today. We're just going to be free rolling today.
We're guest free.
Yeah.
So we have vacancy.
We have guest vacancy today. Yeah,
So
for sure.
so if you want to come on to our show right now, all you need to do is walk out of your house, make a left, okay, take the bus to Midtown, and you'll see us right in the middle of Times Square and join us.
That's a great idea. Also, I go by the name Naked Cowboy now, so just make sure you go and talk to him.
Listen, I'm leaving tonight because the roads are going to get bad, but I'm in Massachusetts, and I got to tell you something. I can remember probably on one hand how many times I was like, "Damn, it's cold." Because I like the cold, and I'm always dressed properly.
Right.
For the cold, I'm always prepared. Even when I was in Finland, Sweden, Iceland, all those places, I was never this cold. I was like, "Oh my God, it's cold."
Well, that's because we're experiencing what Floridians do when they come up north. We've gotten used to warmer winters over the last few years, and this one is just been a killer for us. But I know you guys really love to hear us talk about the weather, but we also want to talk about what you want to talk about there. So if you happen to have any questions or comments, feel free to drop it in there, and we will address those if you have any. If not, Anthony and I got plenty to talk about today because we can't ever shut up.
Where's our slide when it says "Ask Anthony and Glenn"? Where's our
right there. Boom. What do you think about that?
Okay, so you went to Alice last week.
Yeah.
Okay. So, you know what? This is interesting. There's a lot of people in the industry that don't know that there's these conferences all throughout our industry that happen constantly, and there's this whole circuit. Like a lot of people who run hotels are busy; they don't even realize that. So first, let's just start and let's say, where was it and what is Alice?
All right. So Alice is the first major financial conference of the year for the conference year. It stands for the America's Lodging Investment Summit. And really, that's what it's all about. It's about operators, owners, banks, franchise companies, management companies, all coming together in the hopes that deals can be made. Of course, it's all under the auspices of education and sessions and all that kind of stuff. But really, the action that's happening is in the hallways, people connecting with each other and trying to get deals done. You know?
Thank you very much for that. And I have not gone this year. So what happened at Alice, Glenn?
Hold on. First of all, Kim is saying it's 12 degrees in Anchorage right now. That's cold. Although I would think for Anchorage, that's not that cold.
I think that's swimsuit weather, no?
It's definitely warmer there than it is in the Midwest. I know that they've got.
I bet you right now it's 12 degrees where I am. If I go out, at least last night it was. We're getting frigid.
Sure. So anyway, the event took place in downtown Los Angeles at a complex called LA Live, and it's housed at the JW Marriott Hotel. And this event is really sets the tone, I think, Anthony, for the entire year. And there are other financial events throughout the year. Of course, there's the Hunter Investment Conference, the NYU Hospitality Investment Conference, and the Lodging Conference, as well as other ones such as Meet the Money and Southern Lodging Conference and a few here and there. So there's plenty of time for people to touch base and continue to take the industry temperature and make deals throughout the year. But this is really a big one to get the year started over there. So I will tell you, it seemed to be, and please check out all the solo interviews that I did there. I'll be running them. I ran them all last week. I'll be running them through next week as well. I did that many of them. I think, Anthony, the tone and tenor of it was one of general optimism. Some people were more bullish than others. Some people were a little bit hopefully optimistic, cautiously optimistic. But overall, there were a lot of good vibes at the event.
Yeah, and I think that we went in saying, okay, after the election's done, we're going to have some roadmap to where we're going. And I don't think that people feel that way right now.
I think that people feel that it will be a good environment to get business done in, which is probably causing some of that optimism. Although people like to say there are still headwinds aplenty over there, but it depends on what part of the market you're talking about.
You know, the trends of conversions in the last couple of years where we went more to conversions than build. Do you see more maybe shovels in the ground?
Yeah, based on all the interviews that I did, then yes, I do think that there is going to be more. So there's a couple of things happening right now. Right now, new supply really hasn't changed all that meaningfully in like 3 or 4 years or something like that. Definitely since the pandemic began. Also, transaction volume was down again. And there's a lot of money that's sitting on the sidelines, but it looks like if interest rates can continue to come down, and honestly, even though there was a 1.5 cut since the beginning of the fall, it really isn't moving the needle. So I think still a little something needs to happen for that new development to get done. However, there will be some amazing development in certain corridors of the country. Most specifically, I'm talking, Anthony, that Dallas, Fort Worth, down to Houston, that whole giant metroplex, for example.
And I have two questions for you. One, is the extended stay market still all in? Everybody's losing their mind over it. And two, how are people perceiving what Hilton's done in the last couple of years with all the brands that they've brought on, whether it be Viceroy, whether it be the Graduate, all the brands? How are they feeling?
Good news is I have answers for both of those. First of all,
you do. What do you think I asked you?
All right. So first one on extended stay, I will say that people are more cuckoo now for extended stay than they are for Cocoa Puffs. It is just that big of a deal still. Yeah, for real, Anthony. As a matter of fact, I just saw Live Away Suites broke ground in Arizona. I put up that news yesterday. Those are great guys with a relatively new company. But the reason for this is they're number one, you can get the money to develop them, right? Because it has fewer FTEs. For those who aren't familiar, that means full-time employees, and a traditional select service hotel, and most definitely than a full-service hotel. The model seems to be the right thing at the right time, that there's a lot of that so-called white space in order to develop the properties. So when you have more mature segments like select service, now I'm talking to a guy that knows all this, but it's for the audience. When you have a more mature category like select service and some brands that we all know, Hampton and Courtyard, it's harder to develop those properties. But when there's only 1% of extended stay properties compared to select service properties, I'm just making up that number, then there's definitely a lot more room. So there's a lot of things conspiring in favor of this being the industry darling.
But they're still more difficult to build in prime locations because the rooms are bigger, the hotel needs more space, and they're more expensive to build in those particular markets.
But typically, there's so much open space for extended stay in newly developing areas. For example, when I did the Live Away Suites opening past summer in Salt Lake, it was an area just outside Salt Lake, and you could see the Metroplex just expanding. And the area that I was in the ground says coming soon. There were construction cranes on site, or that building looks brand spanking new. So it's like a whole area just developing. And there are so many areas around the country. Yep.
So I'm going to let you answer the second one, and I'm going to pepper you with a third question because you
just
said a word that sparked the question. So what about all the acquisitions that Hilton has done?
So I had an opportunity to have a conversation with Chris Nassetta, of course, the president and CEO of Hilton. That it was not on video, and with other editors as well. And hey, Chris, I'm checking my email. Come on the show. Just drop me a line and let's do it. Three of us have a great conversation. Meanwhile, he sat us down and he talked about all of that kind of stuff and the direction that the company is going in. He did not mention Viceroy at all, but the Graduate thing was a big deal for them, right? So that was really cool. He thinks they've got a lot of room with this particular brand. And the secret sauce for them when it comes to these brand acquisitions, Anthony, comes down to the notion of finding brands where people have the perception there's a lot more units out there than there are. And Graduate couldn't be the bigger poster child, right? Think back in the 90s, everyone, W Hotels, when there were only 17, it was as ubiquitous as Marriott in the conversation,
But the reason why is because they were in the right markets, right? They were in Chicago, they were in New York, they were in Florida, they were in the right markets. So anytime you have a place that's in the A markets and that basically like LA or New York, it seems bigger than it is. Like if I built an Anthony Melchiori store or hotel in Times Square, everybody's going to say, oh my God, it's an international brand. No, it's just in Times Square.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So my third question is, what's going on with the train from California to Vegas?
Well, I have an answer for that too.
Of
But first,
course you do.
I do want to say the folks at my place opened up their largest property to date yesterday in Las Vegas area, in the Las Vegas South Henderson area over there. So again, showing that it seems to be limitless bounds for that. Brightline is actually under construction right now. It's going to be running from Rancho Cucamonga going to just near where the rental car area building is in Las Vegas. I think they're talking about a 2.5 hour to 3 hour trip or something like that, which is great when you think about all that traffic backup. The deal is trying to get it done before the Olympics. So that's kind of their goal, right? So you know how these projects go. They always seem to go late, but that's really what they're shooting for. The whole idea of people are going to come into the Olympics and then be able to head on over to Vegas.
Well, I think the Olympics seems to be able to be the big motivator in getting a lot of these big, huge infrastructure projects done. So when are the Olympics in LA?
28. So
28,
coming up 3 summers from now.
That's quick.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I vision myself on that train going to Vegas from California. I just see it happening.
I do as well. We'll do a train cast on it.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's exciting. What was the news that you were surprised about?
Nothing. Honestly, I don't mean to be jerky about it, but it's just after all these years of us doing this, there's nothing really surprising.
Right. I'm gonna ask you to go deep into your soul and meditate on this, and I'm gonna ask the question again. What's one thing that you learned in that 2 or 3 days that you were there that was like, oh, that's interesting?
Well, I like that Best Western is trying to make more of a competitive move into the outdoor space right now, right? You and I have been talking about how outdoor space is really the next big thing for 4 or 5 years, I think, at this point, right? So now when it's filtering down to brands such as Best Western in terms of price points, then I think that's really, it's pretty remarkable, and it's getting very widespread. So,
and I really think that everybody should be watching this podcast because we make lots of predictions. As I've said many times on the show, I predicted the whole Graduate acquisition years ago when we first started talking about them. So a lot of predictions happened when we said that people are going to forget COVID happened and people are not going to want, hospitals as hotel rooms.
Yes. Let me just do a yes and with you. One of the bright spots of the industry are group events right now. That is actually supplanting leisure as the ability to help hotels reach profit margins.
Right. And one of the things you said years ago was like when they do come back, the reason it's going to come back is everybody's working from home and these meetings are going to be more important.
Yeah, that's right.
The one thing I don't know if we predicted is that people are being forced back into the office. And what's your opinion on that?
I totally get where they're coming from, but I don't think it's necessarily going to work. I think part of it has to do with they want to make layoffs and they don't want to fire people and all of that kind of stuff. So if they force everybody to come to the office, X% are going to quit, is my guess. So that might help them. So that's my Wall Street side of my brain going. Secondly, we grew up in an area, in a world of you have to be there kind of stuff. I would like to see more of a hybrid. I think 5 days is ridiculous. It takes too much of a physical toll on people and doesn't allow them to have
like a 30-year-old. What's wrong with you?
Yeah, but seriously, I think for younger people in particular, I think being in an office environment is good. It's healthy socially. It helps you learn and get ahead. And I don't want to be one of those cranky old get off my lawn kind of guys, but it really creates that social group. And I remember when I was in my 20s, those were my friends. We used to go to the bar afterwards and hang out and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, I'm going to say new rule if I ran the world.
Yeah.
Okay, 1 day from home, unless you have a real work from job home, like revenue management. Or even accounting. I can see, like, why do you have a revenue manager sit in an office, close the door, and don't see her for
There's no reason for that.
For 10 hours? Let them sit in their house because it's so measurable, right? It's so, even group sales or sale, like, it's so measurable. If you want to work home for 2 days, 3 days a week, you have to come in because you have to show the space. But when we're talking just in general, if I'm running a company, I want everybody in 4 days a week, and I want everybody's out of the office the same day. Okay, because
then you're all
because I want to know when everybody's in the office so we can have meetings.
Right.
So we all take Friday, we all work from home, and what I would do is I'd start a meeting at 9 o'clock,
Mhm.
Okay. And then I have a meeting at 4 o'clock. So I have my meeting at 9, have my meeting at 4. So everybody's got to kind of pay attention. I'll know if you're kind of like in Hawaii on that Friday. And during the day, if you need to go do your things and be a little bit more flexible, fine.
Yeah.
But I think at the very least, everybody needs one day at home. I like the little
Yeah. I
flexibility to
think
have
so too.
that one day. I think it's
Mhm.
important. I had somebody recently say to me, "How did you guys do 5 days a week? That's so ridiculous. Like that's not fair. That's not fair. And how anybody could ever think that somebody can go in the office 5 days a week is insane." And I would complain, and I would like, can't we sue? Like literally
Can
went
we
off, and I'm
sue?
like, oh my god. I was talking about something kind of to change the subject a little bit, and we're talking about the generation today, and I think there's a lot of hard work is in this generation, as I said
Mhm.
before. But when people are thinking about things that are nonsensical, meaning they're putting barriers in their way, that it's so hard, and
Right.
this is hard and that's hard. It's
Mhm.
like, World War II was hard.
Yeah. Right. That's
COVID was hard. The Depression was hard. It's like, Starbucks didn't get your coffee order right. That's not hard. And I think
speak for
some of the
yourself.
things, some of the things that are happening with people today is they're not challenged enough. So there becomes problems. When we were growing up, imagine the generation before us and the generation before that, they were just trying to get ice
That's right.
that wasn't poison, back in the early 1900s. There was hard stuff going on. So I'm
Yeah.
not saying there's not hard stuff now, but there's a lot of stuff that we put in front of us that is hard that really isn't hard.
Yeah.
Right. So this whole like, how did you do 5 days work going into the city? It was like putting your shoes on. You just did it, and it
Yeah.
wasn't hard.
Yeah, my buddy who commuted for 20 plus years had his whole routine down. He'd get on the train, he'd fall asleep, he'd get up, and on the way home, he'd like read and stuff like that.
Yeah,
You
but,
know?
but and when you were in the office, you had this great, if you liked your job, you had this great like world,
Yeah.
and you have this great connection to people,
Yeah.
and it's so needed. But anyway, I don't mean to
All
change
right.
the subject.
So I got a question for you. So if a billionaire stays at your hotel, 3 rooms, what type of tip would you assume was left for housekeeping?
Okay, first of all, I wouldn't assume any type of tip would be left for housekeeping, because I don't assume people are going to leave a tip. Now, if the person is a human being and he's nice, um, I it would be depending on what he wants. Just because he's a billionaire doesn't mean he's got to give a bigger tip than what most people do. I think it's based on the room, right? So say I'm not a billionaire, which I'm not, and I've stayed in a 3-room suite, which I have in the
Yeah.
Rome, and I stayed in a beautiful, very expensive room, 3-bedroom suite when I was in Rome with my family years ago, and I wanted to go on this big crazy vacation,
Mhm.
and I left a tip that was the percentage wise of what I paid for the room.
Mhm.
So if I'm staying in a limited service hotel and I'm paying $200, I'm going to leave X tip. If
Right.
I'm staying in a 3-bedroom suite where I'm paying X
Right.
dollars,
Mhm.
I'm going to leave a percentage tip on the X dollars. It
Right.
doesn't matter my bank account. Okay. The
Yeah.
reason I'm probably a billionaire is because I don't tell people about how I make my bank account. I spend money where I want to spend money. So I don't think just because somebody's a billionaire, they're obligated to give a bigger tip. I think the tip is based on
Yeah.
the price of the room. Like Joe Rogan, I was listening to him the other day on a podcast, and he said he goes to a bar and his friend says, "I give $1 for a beer," and he goes, "$1?" He goes, "You're rich." He goes, "What am I supposed to give 5?" He goes, "I gave 100." And he goes, "The only reason I'm telling you that is because that 100, I've become very wealthy in my life. That 100 doesn't mean anything. I'm not going to miss that 100. But that 100 just made that person's night. So if I was a billionaire, yeah, I would give a really big tip. That is complete. I'm a big tipper to begin with, but
Yeah.
that's completely out of whack with the percentage. But what I would expect is just a percentage of what's appropriate."
Well, unfortunately, this person got 0 according to the post. So that's a shame.
That's
Yeah.
bullshit.
Yeah. Total
Or maybe
bullshit.
they just even forgot, which I have. I used to take. You're gonna kill me. I'm gonna admit this. I
Uh-oh.
used to get a car sent to. Well, we still do. We get cars sent to us from hotels in Vegas when we get there. A beautiful Bentley, whatever. And every time I got out of the car,
I had that
I
once
I, I didn't
or
tip.
twice. Yeah.
I forgot. I talked to the guy and I never tipped that person. And then I was talking to somebody I won't mention, And suddenly telling me a story similar to this, I realized, are they talking about me? Oh my God, they're talking about me. So now every time somebody picks me up at the air, or from the airport, they get a very good tip.
Yeah, good. I like that. I actually sometimes so lame. Like when I heard that they were going to send that car once for me for that particular thing that we did, I'm like, I don't want to do it. It's going to be cheaper just to take an Uber. I felt compelled. It's like I'm driving this Rolls Royce. I can't give a $10 tip. I got to like go big time, right? You know. So
Right, right. That's funny you said that. But yeah, so listen, zero is zero, and you move on, right? You
yeah,
take your next swing, and people are people, man. It just I was in a small poker tournament a couple weeks ago,
yeah,
and somebody hit in the cash games which I don't play. They hit the big what is that called? Bad beat, and like it could be upwards of $30,000-$40,000 on a bad beat,
yep,
and like the whole table gets paid, and the two people that were in the hand get paid, and then it's typical that you give a really good tip to the dealer.
hmm,
And the dealer was telling the story, and they said, "Well, how much did you get tipped?" And she said zero. And we were all like, "What?" And she's like, "Yeah, it's okay." Like,
yeah,
listen, but it's terrible. That's terrible that somebody would do that.
yeah. But a certain X percentage are going to do that,
Hmm.
right? But we have to kind of balance it. I'm curious is if because tipping culture has become such a thing. I'm wondering if people are starting to purposely not tip in like areas like housekeeping. Like I get it at the Starbucks if they're just handing you a cup that they just did a thing for, but I don't know. How do you see that overall issue with people feeling they're being nickel diamond tips and how that might be affected?
If I were running a coffee shop or a thing like that, I would not allow them to turn around the computer that says,
Yeah,
okay, and they're staring at you like this.
yeah, it's the worst.
I would not allow that. I'm not saying I wouldn't allow that to be a mechanism to get a tip,
Yeah,
but I just wouldn't. I would say as soon as you turn it around, you have to walk away and go make believe you're doing something. Like
yeah,
that is
totally.
the most unsettling thing ever.
Yeah, I hate it. I hate it.
Right? I always hit it and I always tip, but it's like, dude, you're like, I don't
I
force
don't
you.
feel good about it. I don't feel it's about the service. And I actually every time I do it, it like chips away at whatever brand it is, my affinity for them. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah. I don't at Starbucks when they turn it around. I always do the tip, but I don't like that they do that. And listen, there is a lot of work that goes behind it. But again, you can make the argument of pay your people well, and you won't have to tip everybody.
Yeah, that's the way I wish it was. I'd really rather you just charge me more for a cup of coffee. And
However,
then,
if you do go to a restaurant that my daughter's the waitress in, please tip her well.
well, that's fine
She works
because
very hard.
that is where we've always tipped. I'm talking about this tip creep BS. We got to
Yeah,
take
yeah.
care of our servers, valets, all the people that are doing all of that stuff. But all this newly invented having to tip things for things that was never assumed to tip is just
Yeah,
dumb.
so soon's gonna come when you go to a crossing guard and the crossing guard goes, you can go, you have to give them a
Dude,
dollar.
yeah, I saw a tip cup at the dry cleaner. I'm like, come on,
Tip the
really?
dry cleaner.
I did not tip the dry cleaner, but I
Wait,
saw,
there's a thing that says a tip?
yeah, little tip cup thing. Yeah,
That it flips around and says tip? Yeah,
yeah,
that
just
would be, yeah, that would be my, I'm leaving the island. That would be
yeah,
my end point.
yeah. So,
I'm not tipping my dry cleaner. No, especially my dry cleaning bill. I'm not tipping on that dry cleaning bill.
all right. So Dan's got another question. This is actually pretty good. We've talked about this on an older episode once. Do you feel paying more to associates that work on the weekends? How do you feel about that, or are you neutral? I recall on one show, I think Del Ross was our guest at the time, talking about how they would do like Uber type pay. Like on weekends, maybe on Saturdays, they'd pay a housekeeper a little bit more to, make them want to come in a
Yeah,
little
I think my 20 years ago answer would be different than today.
Yeah.
I am a true believer in meeting needs where we are, meeting people where they are, and meeting the environment where we are. And in this industry now, I think anything you need to do to ensure that you have enough labor, you have to do.
Yeah.
So the answer is whatever works for that organization and makes sense to them, then I would be supportive of that. I'm a bit like, again, I said everybody should be in the office, 4 days a week. If I was running a company and for some reason somebody convinced me that this company will run better and we'll have better, a better team if everybody worked from home and we're in the office one day, that would be a big hard turn for me. But again, it's got to make sense. And, I can change my mind a lot.
Yeah.
I change my mind based on facts. I'm a facts driven person. So if the facts line up and it makes sense and I think we can win, then the answer is yes.
Yeah, cool. I love it. Any other topic you want to talk about today, or you think we've given it a good go?
I'm seriously considering hair transplant.
Oh, that's awesome. With who? Like Telly Savalas or somebody?
No, I'm going more for the George Clooney hair. What do you think?
I think that would be amazing, and we could document your journey on a series of emotional video posts throughout the entire.
Just to be clear, so anybody says, "Wait, that would never happen."
That
I would
was
never
a
do
joke.
that. But no, I think we're in a very weird place in business right now. And I think if I had to sum up, if somebody said, "Okay, get in front of the room and tell everybody your feeling on business and what the future looks like," I would say one or two things are going to happen. One, the shift with technology and AI and everything is going to change things that we won't recognize. And
Right.
we'll, just like the cell phone, just like cars, just like airplanes, it'll become normal. It won't be a big deal. And all of a sudden we have a chip in our brain and we're like, yeah, have time we're human, have time to turn our chip on. Seems normal to me, right?
Mhm.
Or the wheels are going to fall off of everything. That's where I'm at. We're going to go and it's going to be significant change, or the wheels are going to fall off. That's where I am.
Yeah, I love it. So stick to No Vacancy Live for more awesome predictions that always come true.
And that's not being negative. That's being like, there's only so much change a human being in a world can deal with. And every society has morphed into something, and every society has shut down over the world over the last thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah.
Every society has had an off switch.
That's
I
right.
just hope the off switch is 1,000 years from now.
Yeah, well, we can only hope. Speaking of off switches, well, you're going to want to turn one switch on. And of course, that's following us wherever you go to get your socials, download our podcast wherever you get your shows, and follow us on video so you could rewatch these episodes time and again. I personally think, Anthony, you want to put one of these episodes on during family dinner and just let us join you. That's what I'll.
Yeah, wouldn't it be funny as we're talking, we just go, pass the rolls, please?
That's really funny. All right, so tomorrow, let's see who we have on the show. Who do we have? We've got a GM on the show tomorrow from another country. So we're gonna talk about what it's like running a business in I think Mexico. So that should be a lot of fun. So tune in for that. Remember, until then, you've got one life. So blaze on.
Be kind to yourself.
See y'all tomorrow. Have a great day.